Yeah.
Hey, John Wilmer, can we get an audio check?
What's the name of your firm?
Oh,
But it's been a while.
what's that?
Audio sounds good here.
Far out. I can hear you.
Good.
People normally want me muted, so go right ahead.
We're building meet.
Oh,
So
yeah.
we had one for 1957.
Okay.
But it is
It's like,
in beyond.
yes.
The whole. So we are embarking on a project.
I just talked to you about it. I don't know if you help you with something else or not. Is that in or is that?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
This is kind of the people.
Oh, okay.
It's too bad.
I couldn't say this.
And it's, you know, that is a situation. We have a lot of members and a lot of them are nurses. But a lot of them are electricians, it's their own construction company, so they know. And this thing, when you're trying to do this, and you're doing this, you know, you don't get any of it.
Yeah, no.
Oh, yeah. We went skiing. We were good. You couldn't play hockey.
It's got us in the right sometimes.
Look at it, I guess, but.
That's
not. Yeah. Say this, like, we got a couple. Yeah, okay, good. Yes. You got him in the paper. You guys got him in the paper. Yes, the kids.
We've got.
It's not over.
Budget.
It's actually.
I don't know how detailed it is, because I'm not involved on the inside. I'm just coming on the outside. I'm the guys trying to put your numbers.
That's the hardest part.
Yeah, yeah, we got to
Pay more.
the hardest part is the sales part.
Serious?
It's probably the hardest of all. Better than for example, if they.
Oh, wait.
Well,
It really is.
so you know.
I think we are good things, virtual culture in person.
Okay.
Versus.
Let's do this.
I like versus.
We was one of these.
Spray skin.
All put together.
What you
There's some OCs for these stars. That's the beginning of
Yes.
Yes, you know, my back, you know, we may be standing up and moving around a bit, so I think it's respectful.
Likewise.
In Raleigh, we hold it out.
Should just all follow suit.
Just start to do some jumping jacks.
Maybe describe to those guys that we don't have the L cam, so they won't get that view they may be accustomed to.
No. Did you guys hear that?
Perhaps mention it to them. John and Roger, in case you haven't noticed, we don't have the, we have this, you know, sound bar, room camera device below the TV, and then we typically have this other little meeting owl device on the table, and that thing is malfunctioning today, so this is the only view you get. So if there are fireworks in the back of the room, we'll just have to try to interpret those for you.
Call Jay. If they're fireworks, call Jay.
That's a great idea.
Okay, I think we
Yeah.
can start. It's been a spell. Welcome to the Planning Commission, Town of Alta Planning Commission, Wednesday, December 18th, 2024, our last meeting of the year. And I think we've met. Hope everybody's, we got some walking wounded up here, but you know, the minds are still sharp, so we'll bank on that. Great to see the change of season. We could use a few storms here and there, but it's light, so that's a good thing. Public comment, kind of in general, not to comment on the we're gonna have a discussion and presentation later. But if anybody would like, we'll open this up if anybody would like to have some comments to the commission and the welcome to. We'll start with anybody. Is anybody on queue online who wants to speak at this stage?
Yeah, if there's anyone who's joined virtually, if you're in Zoom, if you could just raise your virtual hand and we can allow your microphone if you'd like to speak.
No?
Nobody yet, yeah.
Nobody yet? Anyone from the public? Okay. Fair enough. Let's go to our approval of the review and approval of the minutes from August 28th. I was here virtually. So a good turnout. Anybody have any chance to go through the minutes and any corrections, thoughts?
One quick correction, the date on the end of the minutes that they're gonna be approved, I put. It was not today's date, so I will update it to today's date, if today's the day they're approved.
Okay.
Typo.
Thank you. No,
Yeah.
Page 6.
Yeah, I think I dated it for what the next scheduled meeting was, but. This is our next meeting, so I'll get that.
I'm gonna strike that and amend it to minutes approved on December 18th, assuming they'll approve them today. 2024.
With that correction, I'll make the motion that we approve the minutes.
Jeff made a motion, is there a second? Okay, Rob seconded, thank you. Minutes are approved. Chris, or, yeah.
Does everyone have to vote on that?
I think it is.
Oh, yeah.
Those who are.
No, you don't need a.
Yeah.
Very roll call.
Don't need a.
Well, I know, but was everyone in favor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next on the agenda, staff updates in the town website, the email addresses.
Yes.
Can I just interject before you start, Molly?
Yeah.
I think it would have, John Goldner might have customarily provided a little bit more of a briefing to the commission on, stuff we've been up to generally at the town, and the town council did adopt the amended subdivision ordinance. I believe it was in November. We had a little bit of a misfire with noticing. But we got that done, so thank you for your work to review drafts and kick something along to the town council.
That was end of calendar year deadline. Set by the website.
Yes, we made it, and I think we beat some other people, probably a fair amount of other jurisdictions, so. Yeah, aim to excel. Take it away, sorry.
Okay, so we just wanted to bring to your attention, if you haven't noticed yet, we did update our website in October. So there's a couple different enhancements. Obviously, it's a different look. Couple things to draw your attention to is the new agendas and minutes page. It's now, we hope, a little bit easier to navigate and search. It's organized by public body. So you can see town councils at the top, planning commission's a little bit lower down. But you can also search if you just want to see planning commission. You can put in a date range if you'd like. Agendas and packets are pretty much the same. The only kind of major difference is before we may have posted individual documents independently, and now everything's just being rolled into one big packet. And then once the audio and the video are ready to share, we will add those links as well on here. Another thing to mention is we do have a new URL. We're now townofalta.utah.gov, and that was kind of inspired by a legislative update, I think in 2023, that all Utah government websites had to be updated to a top level domain by January 1st, 2025. So we've got that accomplished. And along with that, all Town of Alta email addresses are also being switched over to townofalta.utah.gov. They've all been created and they're all kind of active and working. All town staff has been fully switched, so those are now our primary email addresses. And then the last step is any council members and planning commission members that have Town of Alta emails. We're working with RIT to get that scheduled before the end of the year, but there'll just be some minor steps that you'll have to take if you're, checking your Outlook to just log back in. And then once that's done, if you're replying to emails, they will come from the utah.gov domain. But in the meantime, there shouldn't be any lapse in emails received to either one.
You want to say anything, if you haven't already said it, about how we are going to post and distribute meeting materials and exhibits?
feel like I covered that.
It's maybe more germane to the council. Where we prepare these council meeting packets are typically quite large, and we prepare these big sort of compilation documents with a table of contents and hot links to the pages. And then we would typically post each individual attachment to the website, so there's maybe less of a transition for the planning commission to make. Because we just, we don't have the same level of prep that goes into the meeting, so maybe that's not as big of a deal for the planning commission. Anyway, we'll typically only have one attachment here in the website, a compilation document of all the exhibits related to a meeting rather than individual files as before.
Very good.
Yeah, if you run into any questions or concerns or comments about the new website, please let me know.
Okay, looking good. Thank you.
I'll get a notice when we're officially switched over to the new. email
Yes.
address. Anyway. Deal with that.
Somebody else.
It will be confusing, rest assured. But only for a little while.
Well, good, thank you. As we move into year 2025, keeping all the deadlines, that's right. Agenda item number 5. Response to state proposal for Pat's and Murray property. I'm gonna turn most of that time over to Chris, and we'll have some discussion. We'll turn it over to the estate, but just want to. They got the staff packets, also in a hard copy and handed out today. Just want to give kudos to Chris. I thought this is a very thorough and incredibly helpful staff report. So thank you for this. A lot of good history and get us all up to speed on the same page with this issue. Chris, do you want to say anything before we turn
Sure.
things over?
Yeah, I don't have too much to say in introduction that I didn't say in the staff report, or that these guys didn't say in their presentation, which we included in the packet, but we do have Zach Hardman, Doug Ogilvie, and Wade Budge representing the Toronto State here today to talk about their proposal. There is a lot of history. There's some history here in the staff report, but there's a lot more history. Everybody at the table, pretty much everybody in the room has been involved with Alta long enough to know that conversations about Patsy Marley Hill property, which is 25 acres of private property all in one parcel, the likes of which don't really exist elsewhere in Alta, at least not in what you might think of as like the center of town or in any sort of developable location. We've been talking about this for a while. Initially, Dwayne and Jody Schron's, were discussions with the town about building a hotel down below the Summer Road. They passed away. The estate pursued the concept of a subdivision, submitted an application to the town to subdivide the property in 2009. The application was denied. Litigation ensued. 5 years later, the litigation was settled. Salt Lake City and the Schron's estate, town of Alta and the Schron's estate entered into agreements. The town of Alta agreement is essentially an attachment to the agreement between the estate and Salt Lake City. So those three parties are bound by those agreements and the agreements provide for a 10-lot residential subdivision. The agreement of this staff report includes links to that development agreement, which we posted kind of in a media cache on the town website. So if you want to dig in to that more, you can find that linked there, and some of us here in the meeting can certainly speak to it if necessary. In the meantime, the estate and the town have discussed a variety of concepts for some development concept that is not a 10-lot subdivision, some kind of larger single building down below the Summer Road, roughly in the location where that original hotel concept was envisioned, I don't know, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, maybe it was. And this is somewhat along the lines of those, the key difference being that this is this would be facilitated by a rezone to forestry multifamily 20, which is one of our high density residential, high density residential zoning districts. we've been discussing this with the estate for the last little while, trying to kind of push their concept into an existing zoning district. And I think we all figured it was time for it to see the light of day and start to get some public reactions. So the purpose of this meeting today is just for them to walk through the proposal, which is depicted in pretty significant detail in the slides, to get some reactions from the planning commission. I tried to be clear in the staff report that this doesn't constitute a complete application to rezone the property. There are a couple of things that are missing, amongst which is a statement of availability of utility services. So we're all in discussion about that. For the time being, we're hoping to have the planning commission weigh in and provide feedback on the kind of core land use topics and trade-offs between this concept and the 10-lot subdivision, which is entitled in the development agreement. Discuss the town development general plan. I did a somewhat hasty review of the general plan a little bit late in the game. There are a number of provisions in the general plan that I didn't highlight that could shed some light on this concept and how it might fit with the general plan. So if we get around to talking about the general plan specifically in the meeting, we talk about those. So anyways, I don't have anything more. I don't have anything beyond what's in the staff report as an intro, and I don't see a reason not to just hand it over.
Yeah, this is one more thing to reiterate from the chair here, is this simply to have a discussion today, like, there's.
Correct.
No.
Yeah.
I'm not anticipating anything. So it's a conference, we're gonna talk ahead of them. So with that,
We can have a
floor is yours.
up there, which is a new thing. Nice. You find that? Yeah, it should.
I don't know.
The left button goes left and the right button goes
Checking
right.
how to use this thing?
Oh, I think you're an engineer.
Anyway, I'm Doug Ogilvy, here representing the state with Wade and Zach. So I got involved in this project about 5 years ago. But, as you guys all know, the Betsy Marley parcel has been under discussion for many years. So after the estate, reached the settlement agreement, there was a thought on the estate going, maybe there's an alternative development that may address the town's, significant interest in preservation of open space. What we've been through is firstly, I'd like to thank Chris on a pretty thorough, well put together staff report. I think it fairly represents what's going on, and it's quite helpful.
You might have to advance the slides.
Does this thing?
Pressing the
this
big
does.
middle button.
Well, it's new technology for us, so.
It's all right.
It's probably on our
I can wave my hands around.
Apologize. Yeah.
Just let me
Well,
know
it
then.
advanced.
Yeah.
Yeah. So overall, the
Teenager in the house.
thought was, is there a way to come up with a development concept that's more favorable? You can see in the history here, 2014, we had a settlement agreement, 2019. I joined the estate, we brought in, an architectural planning firm to help us look at different alternatives. We've been back to the city council or town council twice with some concepts, and through that process, we've shrunk the project twice. And then we finally, under guidance from the town, moved in the direction of, can we fit this thing into an existing zone? And it occurred to us that there was a way to come up with a concept under the FM20 zone that created an opportunity for the estate to create saleable real estate all below the road, but they're the upper side of the mountain, not need any variances or changes or any of those things. So we retooled around that FM20 zone. And we did meet it. We took a preliminary meeting with Salt Lake Public Utilities. They're very in favor again of preserving the 20 acres on the top of the hill. So they encouraged us to continue our discussions with the town. Which brings us to here. So we can flip forward a slide. See what I've got in my deck. So the property boundaries, you're familiar with those. That's the red line. green are wetlands, the surveyed wetlands through there. So the proposed rezoning is the white parcel. So we've got this weird panhandle shape above the road. All of that panhandle is required to meet code requirements for lot coverage. We would put a conservation easement on that basically says it's not going to be developed. It's just there for meeting acreage lot coverage requirements. We flip forward one. Blue is the surveyed 50-foot setbacks from streams from back in the 2014 settlement agreement. The water courses were defined. Those are the setbacks. So you will see when we go forward, we do need driveways to cross those. But again, as Chris mentioned in the staff report, the 10-lot subdivision also had driveways crossing the water courses. And these water courses are actually, 12-inch wide water courses, but they are water courses. You do have a town code. Next slide. So there's the, back up. I think it's what you got working. Yay. Perfect. Thank you. So yeah, so great. Yellow is the conservation easement on the development lot. So here's what we're looking at, the different development constraints. We've tried to simplify it. Red slopes over 40%, which 40 or 30, 30.
Yeah.
Slopes over 30%, which is a no-build zone in Alta. Green is a wetland, which is a no-build zone. The hashed green area is the 50-foot setback from the water course. So you end up with the blue area is the net developable area. Under the FM20 zone, we're entitled to 20
units.
20 development or dwelling units per acre, per net developable acre, and 40 guest rooms per net developable acre. So our net developable acres is a little over 3. So if you went 20 times 3.3 would be 66 dwelling units. Our proposal is to put a cap of 29 dwelling units on the property. And then the other key is guest rooms, which are equivalent to bedrooms under your or condominium. So 3.3 acres at 40 guest rooms per acre would be a maximum of 132 bedrooms. There's also a requirement, incorporated within the proposal is including a minimum of 3 workforce housing units with a minimum of 8 bedrooms in it. So we're basically looking as we get into the architecture of the building. There's some areas in the lower. We know that workforce housing is super important up here. We want people here when you're snowed in. So we said, let's make sure we incorporate some within the project. So overall, this funky little rainbow map is showing how we're complying with the requirements of the FM20 zone. This is a conceptual plat. You can see the weird lot I've created on the bottom left, and then you've got the upper lot, which would be subject to a conservation easement. And again, the panhandle is also subject to the conservation easement. This is when you overlay it all together. So bottom left is a conceptual footprint of a building that we've been kind of working on, massaging, shrinking, fine-tuning over the past number of years. So it's all sitting in the bottom left corner and outside of the no-touch zones. This is just showing that the upper portion of the lot is again conservation easement. There's a lot coverage requirement of maximum 25%. We're at 21% with the lot boundaries as shown. That's what I was showing here. So this is trying to show the 2 driveways. It's a little harder to read here, but
I think this is the driveway you have illustrated generally on the maps, right? So it descends from the center of inside the parcel.
So basically under the Fonzie agreement with Forestry Service, we do have the right today to widen and pave from the Summer Road gate to basically roughly where that pie-shaped panhandle portion of the parcel is. And then from there, once we're onto the estate property, we would have the driveway drop down below the Summer Road to access the property. So we would, so using this currently entitled approach to fixing the road or access. We would use the summer road, we would widen it so that you have vehicles on the downhill side of the road, skiers and snowcats on the upper side of the road. We've also talked in there that there would be the ability, or part of the discussion is past where the driveway drops off, continue the widening, not necessarily paved, but to create a snowcat parking area. So if you're basically going in by snowcat, you don't. And you could also have a drop zone right where the driveway comes. So if you're gonna jump in your snowcat and go up into the Albion Basin, there's an area to basically temporarily stage, unload into your snowcat, then go park your car below the gate.
And who would that be? Would that be for?
That
Who
would
be for?
whoever the people who have the 30 snowcats.
Existing
that are on that road, right?
Okay.
The state is really aware of the needs of their neighbors, right? And they're trying to make sure that's covered.
So yeah, so we're basically going, how can we, if we're going this way, how can we get as close to matching the current condition as possible? And, if we start paving it, right now where we're widening the road, we're proposing to widen the road, it's where all the snowcats are staged right now. So we're going, if we pave and widen that section, then the snowcats would need to stage further up. So if they're staging directly above where our driveway pulls off, let's make sure we create a drop zone that you can at least get all the gear out of your truck, load it into your snowcat before you head up to either your cabin or the Albion Basin. So that's basically working with, current entitlements. So another thing that we've explored from a physical perspective, this hasn't, we haven't gone and talked to any other authorities other than the town of Alta about this, is instead of, using the summer road, if we can work with US Forestry Service and Ski Corp, ski lifts, drop down on the ski lifts access driveway, build our own driveway in that parallels the summer road. We'd have to do a little bit of reconstruction of ski lift's driveway. But if we went this way, then the summer road would be in exactly the current condition. We wouldn't have to touch it. So this is physically feasible, but this would require cooperation from two parties that aren't in the room today. So we're basically saying, we're working with current entitlements. The Fonzie agreement from the Forestry Service, we access through the summer road. If we add in ski lifts, revisit the agreement with the Forestry Service, we could separate, all vehicle traffic from snow traffic. Kind of a look at what the building might look like. So this is, and again, this is kind of volumetric studies saying, given the rule book we're proposing, what could this look like? So the arrival level is kind of the middle of the building. So you would drive in on the upper, which is the right driveway, which is got a little turnaround at the end of it. To drive in there, drop off, pick up. Yellow is basically kind of condominium amenity space. The ski storage, skier lounge, front desk, those sorts of things. The condominium down bottom left in red. So it's kind of the main floor of the building. Going down, basically one level of cars, tandem parked. Dark blue is proposed workforce housing, and then red in the bottom corner is another condominium unit. And we drop down one more level, and you're, more amenity spaces. You're basically coming down at the bottom of the building. Going up, this is the floor above the lobby. Basically, you're showing, condominiums in red. Top right corner is buried in the hill. So it becomes MEP. We gradually climb up the building. As we get further floors up, the footprint shrinks. Another floor shrinks again at the penthouse level. And this is just again a rough grading plan showing with it, we don't need massive retaining walls to make this thing work. We're trying to work with existing grade on a site that does have a lot of grade change between the summer road and the ski travel road. And there's the grading plan. So here's a cross section, kind of a conceptual cross section through the building. So the yellow area is the arrival, the main floor of the building with condos above, one on that level, another below, one deck of parking, and some buried storage mechanical space. So we're basically, we've got the building stepping back as you climb up the hill. And one of the things under your base facility zones, which Snowpine built under, that requirement of the building can't be more than 20 feet above the adjacent highway. So we basically have proposed, setting a USGS elevation for the top of the roof, which is 25 feet above the summer road, kind of in the middle of the building.
Quick question, your air handling HVAC units, are you going to be on the roof?
So I believe your code has got some provisions for mechanical appurtenances. I haven't dug deeply into those, but I would expect we would need some of those on the roof.
So that would slightly higher with or some sort of
Of screen around it, right? Yeah, and we'd work to fit that within your rule book. So that's kind of a cross section that I think does a decent job showing how the building would step up the site.
And that sort of gap between the trees where the numeral 15 appears is meant to be the.
Yeah, so that's thanks for pointing that out, Chris. So top right is the summer road. So 2 trees on the low side of the road, 1 tree on the high side. So you can see if you're skiing up or skiing down that summer road, you're really looking down onto this building at its highest point. So if you're before you get to the property, you're going to be looking down on the roof. As you go past, you're looking straight across, but it's not from the summer road. That's we're trying to have a similar treatment as how Snowpine Inn was. We won't try and study this in great detail in this scale, but this is just running numbers for what the building as drawn here might look like, or as drawn, what are the numbers of that? So, red's condominium space, yellow's amenity space. There's workforce housing space in there. And then there's underground parking, underground MEP, underground storage. So, if ultimately the town agrees to let us pursue this alternative, we create an 18.5 acre conservation easement parcel and a 6.5 acre parcel that gets rezoned to FM20. Of that 6.5 acre parcel, 1.5 acres is encumbered with a conservation easement, and another half acres of it is or half an acre or an acre of it is the summer road. The building height is capped at 25 feet above the summer road. Under your FM20 zone, Planning Commission has the discretion to set height for any building that has a CUP. So we would be asking Planning Commission to agree that 25 feet above the summer road is an acceptable height limit. And ultimately, the trade-off is we're going to say, let's conserve 20 acres of open space and stack the density in one corner. The plan is submitted, I think, is showing 24 condominium units. We're not the end developer. We're trying to create some flexibility. So we're proposing a maximum of 29 condominium units. The other thing we're proposing is under the settlement agreement, we're capped at 10 single family homes with 8,500 square feet above grade. In a condominium, so if you build a single family home, you also end up with usable square feet in your basement that's not part of that 8,500 square feet. With a condominium unit, you need elevators, stairways, centralized facilities. So we've basically said, let's cap the building at 85,000 square feet of saleable, platted condo space. And then, under the FM20 zone, you'd have a maximum of 132 bedrooms. So that would be, so you kind of the
132 plus the employee.
Plus the workforce housing.
140 total.
Yeah, or more. If we can fit more workforce housing in and you guys are agreeable to that, we'll put more workforce housing in. So we're saying, let's separate the bucket. Don't But give us a minimum for workforce housing and give us a maximum for saleable condos. So access, as we said, there's, you know, using the current approvals, we widen the road and come in, causing some inconvenience for the current snowcat access, which we try and mitigate by creating more snowcat parking above our driveway and a drop zone there. If we could, you know, reach agreement with other parties, we're quite happy to bring the driveway in below, so we have complete separation of vehicular access and snow access. So the goal is, can we come up with a proposal that preserves the 20 acres, the upper side of Patsy Marley Hill, you know, within the current FM20 zone, there's a way to get there. And ultimately, we would codify that with a development agreement and a development lot plat. So between the two, that's going to revise our rule book from what we have in the 2014 settlement agreement to the 2025 amended agreement and the 2025 amended development agreement. So this is just a bird's eye. The bottom left is a rendering of what that volumetric study of the building would look like. And alternative 2 is the 10 single family homes with the various driveways going up there. And so this is, again, we didn't design 10 different houses. We had the architect come up with a conceptual plan of what does the house look like that is 8,500 square feet that's built onto a 20% slope. So these are basically just meant to give you an indication of the possible size of what 10 homes on the side of the hill would look like, as opposed to, you know, one building next to the ski run, next to the ski maintenance compound.
And the home sites or the building footprints and the driveways do represent what the plat in the 2014 development agreement says they'll be.
Yes, so those building pads are roughly centered on the building pads on that 2014 plat. It's been signed but never recorded. And then the driveways are following the alignments from that.
I love the north arrow too. I want to thank you for adding that north arrow. It's very clear.
And just to clarify too, what you're depicting, and again, this is very schematic, but includes a parking structure that's not, you know.
So basically where the summer road enters the property, you'll see a big gray box. So the estate's interpretation of what the settlement agreement says is there's the ability to build something for parking there. I'm not going to say I'm an expert in that agreement or that, but there is a provision that something happens for parking, and I'll leave it at that.
That's true.
20 spaces, right?
So so you can see we've got a high-tech graphic department came up with that north arrow.
Thank you so much.
Before you leave this slide, so those, I know this is draft, illustrative in terms of those paths, but those locations reflect the no-build areas.
So
as far as the wetlands and things like that.
Yeah, so some of the building pads are not perfect rectangles, shockingly enough. So some of those homes would have to be tweaked and shaped to fit within the building pad, but
Okay.
they are put roughly in the center of the building pad on each of the
Yeah,
lots.
it's
of the
more about the path locations as far back to, let's say, slide, page 7, for example, the slope in your net developable areas.
Yeah, so that's showing, so in single family development, that's where the homes go.
Okay.
They're not gonna look exactly like that,
Sure.
hopefully they'd be prettier. So really what we're here to talk about is, current entitlement is 10 homes like this, or keep the whole top of the Patsy Marley Hill untouched, put a bigger building next to the ski run, next to the ski maintenance compound, below the summer road, maximum 25 feet above the summer road. So that's our pitch, and we'd love to answer questions.
Okay, before I go over, Chris, anything to wrap before we dive into?
No, we've bounced versions of this back and forth with these guys a fair amount. So I think Holly brought up the one issue identified that we hadn't discussed in the version before this, and I don't really have anything to add. So
And I can just, they have presented stuff to the town, it's their concept.
Sure,
We're
sure.
not, I mean, I just wanna make clear that we're not, the town staff is not.
It's not our concept, it's theirs.
Yeah, that's good. Why don't we turn it over to the commission to have a Q&A session, if that's okay? Perfect. Yeah, and I'm the architect, you just represent the whole project, basically.
I'm kind of project manager.
Okay,
call it that.
cool, all right,
I'm an engineer by trade, a developer.
sure,
I've been developing from Whistler to Mammoth to Squaw Valley to Alta to, not to Alta, to Solid to Park City.
gotcha.
I've been in a couple of ski towns.
Okay, good. I'm gonna just, you want to.
Can you go
Go
back,
ahead, Rob.
can you go back a couple of slides? Right there is, so you're talking about grade. Okay, I sold hot dogs for a living. This is grade to me. Are you, where are you are you calling the road the grade? And
So in terms of, in the base facility zone, which Snowpine went under, the rule is the maximum building height is 25 feet above the Albion Road, I can't remember what the road's called, state highway there.
That'd be amazing summer.
So next to Snowpine Inn, it's the state highway. Here it's the Albion Basin Summer Road. So what we've done is we've proposed to set the maximum roof height, excluding approved appurtenances, at 25 feet above the Summer Road. So we've set a USGS elevation of that. I can't read it from here, but it's basically 25 feet above the road at the center line of the building.
So, and maybe I'll just clarify that height in the FM zone and both the FM zones is individually determined by the planning commission. So I think this is maybe just a way to have a target.
Yeah, so ultimately, you have to approve the height for the project if the project moves forward. So we've proposed something that we thought made sense looking at building massing elsewhere in the town of Alta. So we said, let's cap it at 25 feet above the road, the same as the other bigger buildings in town. And, let's just put a fixed elevation on it so everybody knows what the design parameters are.
Before we go into the question, any clarifications? Then we can go to actual, let's clarify, then let's have a discussion, but any clarification from anybody as far as what was presented? Now let's go straight. Oh, go ahead, Mayor.
Do I understand correctly that your intent is to move the parking of the current OSV users to essentially up the road past where you're branching down to this new building?
Our proposal would be immediately after the driveway drops down into the property. If we widen the Summer Road past there, we could basically create a snowcat staging area of equivalent length to what you have right now. And then we would also create a drop zone for pickup and drop off of materials into your snowcat. So we think and again, we've got to go talk to the owners of the road to do that, but we think that is consistent with prior discussions with the U.S. Forest Service.
Okay.
Option two.
Okay, I'd like
Two
to offer
is-
it.
Option two is we drop in before the summer gate using the ski lifts driveway, reconfigure that area and run our driveway parallel to the summer road, and nothing changes for snow users.
Yeah,
Or
existing
snow
users. Yeah, if with regard to the first of these alternatives, I would really like to invite one or more members of your team come over here some dark and snowy night and walk up to where you're proposing the snowcats be located.
Certainly.
Okay.
Good.
Thanks for moving on. So why don't we just start here? If that's do you have questions about the?
I had that main one. Is the snow pine 20 feet above the road?
I thought it was 2 stars. John would know John would know for sure, but I believe the regulation in the base facility zone is divided into 3 subzones for purposes of determining height. And basically the base facility zone properties along the south side of Highway 210 are capped at 2 stories above Highway 210.
All right,
It's not the same regulation north of the road nor on either side of the wildcat lot, but so yeah, that's the scheme.
that's the number.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Dave, I'll turn it over to you for a bit.
Does this fall into the base facility zone?
And what they're asking for is the FM.
We're
So they're asking
no.
for the FM, but that doesn't mean base facility zone either, does it?
No, they could propose some other height, but again, this is an installment in a longer dialogue about you know, one building, or you know, one building on one footprint below the summer road that's bigger than the homes would be. And so necessarily they get bigger than a single family home would be. We were talking about base facility zone or something like the base facility zone in the past. And so that's maybe that.
We'd originally proposed spot zoning, and the town staff encouraged us, can you guys please figure out how to work within the current zoning bylaw? So we said, let's go to the FM 20 zone. FM 20 does give planning commission full discretion on height and setbacks. So we're proposing, you know, we're proposing a height limit of 25 feet above the road, or a USGS elevation cap, which we see as, you know, somewhat consistent with what you have elsewhere in the town.
Okay,
I don't see, if I may,
yeah, go ahead.
you know, what is the, going back to your drawing of the condo unit?
The
whichever
cross-section-
way
the
that
cross-
is.
The cross section you want?
No, from to the aerial view. Okay, that's fine, that's fine. What are we talking width wise? I mean, because that, as Roger said, I'm gonna be up there skiing around and I would like to be able to kind of visualize what we're looking at.
Okay.
And I know the snow pine is however much on the road, and on the other side, it's a hell of a lot higher. And I'm sure we're looking at that here.
So we have 320 feet of frontage across the bottom. So I'm gonna go back to the other slide to see what that might be lengthwise.
320 from here to here,
The bend of the property.
okay?
So if we can see it as here.
So if you're looking at 320 corner to corner,
Okay.
the corner of building to corner of building is 60% of that, so 200 feet.
Okay,
And going up the other way, if that's 200 feet, we're probably 350 feet. Bottom left to top right.
Isn't there an access point kind of in that property for the ski area and skiers to come down from the summer road that crosses those? I'm just trying to visualize where that's,
I don't think this
that,
works.
so that would reroute where, say, ski patrol and
So we
some.
were up skiing there this morning. There's kind of a clearing through the trees right here. You would take there's a lot of trees here, and there's a lot of willow scrub through here. So the main clearance is this way. By the time you're here on the summer road, you're committed to going to the parking lot.
Anything else from you, Dave?
Where does the wetland data come from that's shown in the drawings of the exhibits?
So there was a wetland study done 10 years ago. They're only valid for a certain amount of time. So we did a new one in the summer of 2022. Wade, can you remind me who our consultant was?
Stantec.
Stantec did the first one. When we redid it. Cable. So Cable did an updated wetland study in 2022, I believe.
Yep, that's in process.
So we haven't gone through the full. Yes, we haven't done a jurisdiction. JD, but it's in process.
I think any ideas that would address paving the summer road, it's beyond, you mentioned like the 30 people that have snowcats, there's thousands,
Every
hundreds
skier
of
comes down
thousands
at the
of
end of the day.
people that use that access. Having lived up there, I see it all the time. So probably would be much more receptive to any ideas that would not involve paving any portion of the same road.
Yeah, and that's why we came up with this alternative. We've heard that message from multiple people that if we can not touch the summer road, that would be a very good thing. So
So where's the gate? Is it here? Or where is the
gate
summer
today
gate?
is right here where the creek comes under.
Oh, it's all the way up here.
So right now the gate's there and you have snowcat
Okay, so-
parking all the way to here.
And you're talking about paving up in here.
So we would, if option A.
Well, from the gate.
Option A, we would pave from the gate to here, and then we would widen for snowcat parking here. And we drop down. So that's basically already been approved to do that, to pave that from there to about here. But, you know, we've heard the message that you would much prefer us not to do that. So we've come up with this alternative that we're, you know, ready, willing, and able to explore with other parties.
But we don't control those other parties. So what we have in place is the alternative that you're down below, right? But that's what we have.
And that's, you know, if we do the 10 single family lots, we also pave that section. We're ultimately, we're at a point there, we're 10 years post settlement agreement going, do we go option A, which is put 10 homes on the side of the mountain? Or do we go option B, which is put a large condominium unit on the bottom corner of the property next to the maintenance compound to keep top of the mountain intact?
Sorry, one thing, do you mind for the record?
Oh, yeah, my name's Zach Hartman with Land Advisors. I'm representing the state.
Okay, thank you.
Doug has all the technical knowledge. I'm something else.
He's got more project knowledge. He's been on the project longer than me, and
Okay.
and Wade Budge, I think you may, or he's our attorney.
Okay, very good, thank you. I got a couple of questions. Maybe, again, the staff report's very thorough, and this has been great as well. Just maybe going back to the beginning, so you have the agreement, you have the units. So what was broken, so to speak? Why the shift? You know, why the, aside from the conservation easement opportunity, and things like that, but what was broken, what was wrong with the
Yeah,
the agreement? Just out of curiosity.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Yeah, we got a camera.
Yeah. Okay.
No,
Yeah, so when I was hired, when we start on a project, historically, we get hired for larger, more complicated projects like Daybreak or the Inland Port. Those are like projects we've done in the past, or Fremont Island State Park. So it's kind of full mixture of work. And when I got hired, I was like, look, let's sit down and talk with every shareholder. Let's talk to everybody. And it became clear when we sat down that at least the backcountry community, between issues with parking and other things, that community was under duress. And honestly, the state and myself were sympathetic to that group, right? And so we were trying to think of ways that we could work to find that. And I would say, in understanding the personalities and the passions of this property in the canyon, that like any transaction kind of has to be like what I would call a trustless transaction. Nobody really trusts each other. And I think that's fine. And so, we've been moving forward with items that were outside our control that were other approvals, and those are kind of all done in order to go forward on the 10 lot subdivision. And so while we were in that process, we were trying to fill this out, and we met on site with different people with the city, different shareholders, and there was a really, it was a reoccurring method of please don't build it. That was first. And then that's not going to happen. To like do something that has less impact on the upper side or a smaller footprint. And so we decided, okay, when you don't sell, high-end ski and scout lots, that's a loss of money. So I don't sell 10 lots, so I'm not getting paid for that. And then to build a huge condo complex, the estate has to front, or a buyer has to front way more money than just the improvements to sell the lots, right? So it's a different capital threshold to be able to pull this off. And so we kind of consolidated everything down there to a point where we thought, and we started at higher numbers, but we kind of got chewed down to fit within the group. So we built a little chisel, but in a fair way, we get it. Like I think we knew we asked for what we wish we would get. I think right now we're kind of where we think we can tolerate it, right? And we can pull it off. And that's kind of the life cycle of the dialogue. And so here, the idea is we would get something approved subject to both driveway alignments, right? And we try to do the better alignment, but we can't control that. And then there's other shareholders in there we have to cut deals with, you know, once we've got the deal cut with you guys, right? And so.
When you say shareholders, do you mean stakeholders?
Stakeholders.
Sorry.
Okay, yeah.
Right, someday I'm gonna have to talk to him again.
Okay.
And it's gonna be fun. Hopefully we don't go to court again, but it's gonna be exciting.
So in a way, this is nothing wrong with this, when it's somewhat pro forma driven, it sounds like, in terms of.
There is reality in this,
That's
and
the
there
way,
is humanity in it, right?
Okay.
So we're trying for both. There's probably more profit in just selling the 10 lots. But like, it's weird to have an estate with dual mandates, right? Like one is, I'm done with this process, and then I want to do what's right for my community, right? And I think that's good when we get that, you know, that's a good opening for everybody to kind of get what they want in the process,
Okay.
right? And so I think, does that help tell?
Yeah, no,
I think really it comes down to, you know, the settlement agreement was signed, but it was also very clear post signing that settlement agreement that a lot of people in this valley didn't love the settlement agreement. So we're going, is there an alternative that looks after the economic and other interests of the estate that maybe works better for the people in the town of
Or
Alta?
can we stop it, right? Like that was the vibe, right? And then we're saying the stopping part is probably
Stop it
over.
doesn't work.
So I think this was our attempt, because basically, come summer, we can start, we'll finish, we'll start selling, right? And then once we've sold this to 10, you know, people that buy them, they're, you know, to be able to unwind, it's kind of gone, right? And so we thought it was a nice little window to come to you guys and say, could we do something better here? And, you know, there's no mechanism for us to force this, so you have to want to do it, right?
Right.
And so that's why I feel like in working with town, you know, I feel like everybody was trying really hard to understand each other.
Sure.
And when we actually, we've skied it, we've walked it, we've been here in the summer. The input, if we go out there with the KMZ file, we've tried to put this building in a pocket where it's as hidden as possible, right? And so that was really the goal. So there's a lot of thought
Sure, no.
into the
I know
maps.
there's a lot of work in this.
But we can't draw or spend more money on it until we get we want to do this together thing, right?
Sure.
This is not a small building. Those are 70-foot sugar pines all around it.
Right. Yeah. No, just a quick question about the building, just because I know it to myself, as far as you had, I forget the amenities there. Any of that public amenities at all?
Good question. We should probably have restrooms for the public, and we should have some provision for interlodge for backcountry skiers or something, if we were trying to be, but that's like something to like front staff to, you know, how does that work? Does Will's solid public utilities give additional water so that people aren't, you know, going using the watershed for the bathroom, right? I think that's to be determined.
Yeah, I thought I saw like a small F&B of some sort.
So if you're looking at the residences or nightly rental guests staying in the property, so you could also have those, you know, and the Deer Valley model is probably a taboo word over here, but similar properties over there, you'll basically have a, you know, continental breakfast served and a little wine and cheese served at the end of the day.
Right.
So we're basically providing an F&B, you know, you lose money hand over fist trying to feed 29 condo buildings, but we do feel for the building to have, you know, for the building to have, you know, heart and soul, it does need to have an amenity space that the owners and the guests can gather. And as Zach says, there's an opportunity to try and incorporate some other needs of the community in that space.
We were given the Heisman on that being like an open bar or public amenity, right? And we understand that within the code that's a harder thing to deliver, but I think trying to address some public access for restrooms or, you know, something like that, or, you know, if gondolas are built, you know, you might have more traffic that needs to come up to put gear in place. I just, you know, there's certain things that I think being a member of the community, you probably want to design in, and I think we could get that to that.
Okay.
As we get further.
That's just a little detail, I'm just curious.
It's a good question.
I'm sure we'll come back to this several times, but I'm to keep equity in time.
To clarify on one of your other questions about the lots, so what you're saying is those lots are ready to sell, like if you wanted to start selling them today, you could do that?
We basically have one signature left, and that's your guys's, I think, right, Wade?
You have a water system.
What was that?
Not sure you have a water system yet.
Yeah, we have two designed, and we have drinking water through Longbowl.
The signatures we need are the town of Alta and then the Salt Lake County Health Department, and the health department won't sign until after town of Alta signals to sign. But like we have UFA, sewer, all the other service providers, we have them on the Mylar. But I mean, our intent here is not to come and push that reality. Our intent is instead to stand up here and explore whether there's something that might work, that would be an alternative, that would be considered a win-win for everyone.
I just wanted to understand the status of what's going on.
Thanks.
And again, following up on, public facilities, I'm just curious as to what you see this building providing as benefit to the community, aside from potentially public restrooms. Is this like a gated condo complex that we don't get to go to, or like how much staff are you gonna have and all those things?
Right now, it's somewhat a blank slate, so are there components, that you as representatives of the community think would be really important to include if this project went forward? So we certainly workforce housing, we thought that was a no-brainer.
Yeah.
As Zach points out, restrooms also become a good thing, there's a lot of trees around there, would you rather provide warm sheltered restrooms?
And, I think for the public benefit is we're gonna consolidate a lot of fee simple land in conservation.
So the biggest public benefit is not doing that.
19 acres.
Yeah, which is a big deal.
And that would be working with Utah Open Lands or something like that,
Yeah, so the estate has a couple different people they would work through, but we get that it would be trustless and we want it done, we want it done, because they're gonna want to control the mass as much as. Yeah.
Okay.
Small
definition. No, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, just for the record, I have some familiarity with the settlement agreement and stipulation as I was sitting at the table negotiating that. So, and as the director of Salt Lake City Public Utilities at the time, previous life.
Yeah.
So I do have some questions relative to the agreement. And it's obviously what you're proposing is a significant increase in water use, land coverage, mass, and other things, which was kind of addressed in the stipulation agreement that if we were going to change that, we would have to basically get a renegotiation of the entire agreement.
Well, we agree completely, Mr. Niemeyer, with the fact that we have to. Okay, Jeff, thanks. Didn't want to be presumptuous. So Jeff, we agree completely, we'd have to redo the settlement agreement with Salt Lake City. We've had 3 preliminary meetings with them on that, public utilities that is. It's not true that the water usage would increase with this. We've gone out and done studies of similar products and analyzed the water usage for a product type of this type. That's a detail that would have to be ironed out in an ultimate. So we have it on the issue list, but our analysis is that when we compare what was allocated in terms of the settlement agreement, it was very specific on the gallon per day per unit. And then you compare that to the water demand for a similar product type that we're proposing, we're within the realm of equal. And that's data obviously we'll have engineered, prepared and analyzed and confirmed. The other item though is in terms of mass, I think Doug did a good job of explaining how we're approaching this from a perspective of you're taking 8,500 square feet, which is the allocated above grade under the settlement agreement for purposes of each home, and then looking to convert that into attached, which lessens the impact. Even though there has to be connecting space, which is an increase in terms.
But you have, the total building is over 100,000.
Yes.
Yes.
That's right.
It's pretty big. But I guess my point is that there's a significant amount of negotiation that yet occur.
Right.
Right. Look forward to calculations because I'm just an engineer, so.
Well, I think you're most qualified in the room on this calculation.
And if I take, a total of 140 bedrooms and divide that into 10 lots, that'd be 14 bedrooms per 10 individual homes, which is highly unlikely. So, and water demand is typically calculated on bedded space,
RERC through there.
So, but that's a future dialogue with people other than myself. So The settlement agreement also contemplated that it would be a separate water system owned by the estate. Coming off of the city line along with this.
Yeah,
Fire pump stations and tanks. What's your thoughts on that now?
still the same. So let me add that detail. That was not Doug's presentation. So we've gone ahead before UDOT came through and did their road improvements on the state highway. We laid the pipe for that system. Yes, correct. So that pipe is in the system. We also ran the pipe up to the town's tank, just short of the town's tank. The town has a tank up near the top of the summer road, right below by the mayor's home. And then we have a loop line there as well. And the town actually purchased that second line from us. So we have an inactive line that goes from the Bay City line up through our project to the top. And then we have 2 designs for drinking water, for water tanks for the 10 lots. One is an on-site, which is not preferred because it involves fire flow pumps and another structure within with respect to the below the upper part of the summer road. And then the other one would be a completely gravity fed tank up top on ski lift land. So, and we have both of those engineered by Aqua Engineering, and both have received approvals from Division of Drinking Water. If we go with the this route, we could either strike a deal with ski lifts to try to have the same type of lift. We try to negotiate with ski lifts to have the same type of tank on ski lifts land, or alternatively locate the tank within the conservation easement area, but in both instances below grade.
I guess to another question I have on the conservation easement, you said you're basically looking at that will be held by a
Qualified donee.
third party, basically, so. But as I understand it, and you've talked about the needs of a pipeline, maybe a tank, and other easements that would be within the conservation easement. As I understand it, the ski lift has some encumbrances across this land.
Yeah.
How will those all impact conservation easement?
So those would the conservation easement would be subject to those pre-existing rights held by ski lifts. But those are for uphill travel, and Mike can jump up if I miss one, but there's, for instance, they have it has a name, it's on the plat. It's like
Test.
I just know I got to ride up it one time.
It was a short hill,
with Ano and with some other ski lifts members, so I know the route. And yes, you're right, it's the steep hill route. In addition, they have some setbacks relative to their maintenance facility, which would still be met. And they're private setbacks, and government host setbacks, and they relate to that. And then there's also some utility lines already existing, both in terms of service to others, including uphill, and then also for the benefit of our project. So the conservation easement offer is really to preserve those meadows, to preserve that surface, to preserve everything you understand as exists. The pipes are already in, so we're not intending to have new utilities put in place.
Still needs to be maintained at some point.
Right.
So that could disrupt conservation easement on that.
But I think you could go and make that judgment, Jeff, by just looking at how it's been, how it feels and looks at this time.
Right.
And look from the summer road up, and it would be similar.
yeah, the disturbance is already done, it's in the process of already revegetating it.
Well, and the town's line that got replaced was to abandon an old line that was shallow and required the running of water during the winter. In order to prevent freezing. So, I mean, I think there's been some improvements made through partnership, and we want to compliment the town for being cooperative and assistance in that aspect.
So I guess from my perspective, we're kind of at a chicken and an egg standpoint.
Right.
You're asking us, what do we think of this concept? So Salt Lake City obviously needs part of this agreement needs to be renegotiated.
Yeah.
Ski lifts. And I'm trying in my mind, to say, how do we continue a dialogue? But get all the interested people talking and to move forward to see if there's potential consensus on this, because right now I see it's kind of like 3 different conversations going on, but
it surely is a larger chess game. I think that the way to attack it, I'd say, look, the planning commission definitely needs to weigh in relative to the overall size and location, and then of course the height, because that's in their purview. And then also to make a recommendation relative to the zone. I would envision that if the planning commission were ever to get to a point of making a recommendation, it would nevertheless have to go to the town council. And I would expect that recommendation would have some conditions, and I would say as a precondition that there's a satisfactory conservation easement that protects and preserves the values that are being represented as a significant aspect of the trade or exchange here. And then any other types of conditions, including making sure that Salt Lake City is satisfied with respect to the overall water usage or water demand. And so I mean, those are obvious two conditions, and I'm sure some more would come to mind. And then I think there might be some other more aspirational saying, we would require the developer to work together with other stakeholders on developing the alternative for access, because that's much preferred over having to cause those impacts through the gate on into the property line. So I mean, that would be another detail, but I think in order to make sure it doesn't seem too unmanageable, I think it would be nice to focus on that basket of items that are, reside in the planning commission's discretion and need to be commented upon relative to a recommendation, and then just have another category of things that need to be ironed out before anything could be finalized. Thank you.
I'm thinking through another question, but a little bit related to the public amenities, what have you. So this is a little bit geographically remote in relative terms. So you have workforce housing and you have these units. The whole things in terms of traffic and trips, they gotta eat, they gotta get groceries, they gotta do this and they gotta do that. So that's not a Whole Foods in town or anything like that. And so is this gonna be, what's your opinion anyway, as far as just the basics of life in terms of the day-to-day groceries and all that?
Well, I think if you look at the number of people working in the town of Alta that are driving up from the valley every day, so I think we would have no problem at all finding occupants for 8 bedrooms that would prefer to stay up here and drive down to the valley once a week instead of 7 days a week.
Yeah. Okay. I guess the same would hold true, a little bit less so with the users of the condos if they go that way.
Yeah, I think the users of the condos are most likely fly in, take a shuttle from the airport, camp out here for the majority of their stay, and shuttle from here to the handful of restaurants in the valley, or drive up, but they're not gonna be driving down to Salt Lake City every day.
No, I understand that. No, but
Actually, most of the people have called on the lots trying to like preemptively. They're kind of diehard skiers that'll probably bring up their own food, ski and be left alone. And I would say more than half of them are gonna be Utah-based families. They're gonna try to avoid the traffic. Like that's who's calling me, and they're just, I think that's the vibe. So.
and year-round occupants, I mean, as far as the people are calling and getting away from the summer heat, is it really about the skiing or?
I think these are diehard skiers. I think that's it. Maybe we'll get some full-time residents, but my guess is these are, multi-generational families that come up here with, different, like the people that have called, they're like, they have grandkids that they're having ski and they have a whole setup of people. And that's why, I think, but who knows, but that's who's dialed my phone that I know is financially capable of buying the unit.
Okay, all right, so fair enough. Then I have a question maybe for Polly and Chris too, as far as precedent setting in terms of the potential reason, what is that? What are your thoughts on what does this mean in terms of setting precedents?
So, I mean, it's a discretionary decision, as long as it's rationally related, that reasonably debatable, so you have the council ultimately has a lot of discretion to decide to do a rezone. So I don't think it sets precedent because it's so specific to the site,
Okay,
but it's a good question.
okay.
And I tried to, I whipped out my copy of the Utah ground rules for land use in writing that section of the staff report about the reasonably debatable standards, so I think I got that right. But the mayor pointed out to me the other day that whether you can find it to set a precedent in that way or not, it is something that happened in the past, so it is by that definition a precedent. So I tried to tease that out a little bit in the staff report. One thing that Yeah, we don't do a lot of upzoning in Alta, at least not in my time here. And you could argue this would be to upzone a portion of the property. And condos are kind of a four-letter word in Alta. They have been in our sort of land use planning conversations in the past. So I've been, in speaking with each of you before the meeting, trying to focus on, what are the essential trade-offs here to consider. One is, one large footprint for 10 small ones, one large building instead of 10 not so large buildings. And then the other is, what, like, are we legally obligated to rezone other properties to allow condominium development? No, but could somebody argue that we're obligated to consider allowing, for instance, hotels and base facilities on to add condos? So that's, to sort of point to the elephant in the room. I think that probably is the elephant in the room.
Example I brought was Goldliner's daughter.
Right.
Eventually. Up for rebuild at some point, are they going to want similar considerations?
They met, yeah, it's come up with other hotel projects in the recent past, for sure.
So it may not legally set a precedent, I think, administratively it sets a precedence.
The 20-acre open space conservation easement is something that other people are gonna have a rough time replicating.
Yes. Yes. Yes, okay. We have some people here, we didn't notice this for comment or here, I don't know if we did.
John, I have one
Oh, yeah, go ahead, yeah.
one other question about, Jeff was talking about water and maybe sewer and, but, talk about the electric kind of infrastructure or electricity, 10 houses. Is this underground? Is this extra overhead power lines versus a singular structure, transformers that go overhead? Maybe it's closer to existing infrastructure. How have you guys explored that at all yet?
We haven't dug into it, but I would assume that we would want to bring the power on property underground and keep it underground.
Is the plan is there on the 10 lots.
The 10 lots, were those driveways, those were gonna be hard surface, or do we know that level of detail from the agreement? Was that identified in terms of hard surface, soft surface? I think so.
Yeah, I think we tried to.
Okay.
But there would not be winter access.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. We got some written thoughts, which we appreciate before the meeting. I'm going to ask that we keep it that way for now and not have a big group discussion. And maybe as we look at the future meetings, not have everybody can open it up, but I'd like to keep it to just, if people have thoughts on this, the written comments we've gotten thus far are very thoughtful and insightful and very helpful. And I'd just like to keep it that way for a while and not never do opine session, if that's okay. So
John, can I ask a couple more questions?
yeah, go ahead.
Excuse me. So do you and this is probably to Doug, do you think that this picture on the screen now represents a reasonable plan consistent with the development agreement of 10 years ago, almost 11?
I think that's a reasonable representation of the footprint of development under the existing settlement agreement. The homes would obviously be architecturally superior to that, but the footprint is roughly as shown.
Thanks.
And you consider the parking structure similarly?
As I said, I'm less familiar with the rules governing the parking structure. That is a rendering of the parking structure that was previously engineered. I make no representations as to where that is in the town's approvals process.
Okay, well, I think if you consult the development agreement or the settlement agreement, that it accounted for parking for 20 cars that could be covered. And the structure that you show is about the size of the north wing of Gold Miner's Daughter. So those are really quite different. So that's not a question, that's an observation. Secondly, is it your intent to move all the OSB parking up past where you would branch down to your condo area?
Leave, Mr. Mayor, in order to provide fire access, to widen the road, to provide paved fire access, and also to provide a reasonable shoulder width for OSD and skier snow access, that we would not be able to have OSD parking between the summer gate and the driveway. I don't think physically the space to do that unless we had to widen the road a lot more. So therefore, to accommodate OSD parking, my suggestion would be we try and accommodate it past the start of the driveway, but I haven't drilled into that a whole bunch, but that seemed to me the most logical way to do it. That, like, you know, coming up here and meeting with you last winter, there's, or in the spring, there's certainly an abundance of snowcats or OSBs park along that side of the road, and if they lose the first 400 feet from the gate to the driveway, they're going to want to park somewhere.
Yeah, and it's more than 400, I believe. I think it's only 800, but that's, you know, we could work those numbers another time, but that's a significant displacement of that group.
But it's a displacement that I think you would also experience if we develop the 10 single family homes.
Yeah. Well, maybe.
Well, good. Thank you, and been pondering for a while now, not just today, what kind of our next steps on this. We did hear, yeah, go ahead. You submitted you submitted something in writing.
Concur with their point.
Just go ahead, just for the record, if you don't mind, coming out there. I know.
Mike Mon out to scare you. I would just concur with their point. There's really not enough room for the OSB parking there, and a road, and skier and OSB tracking between the sign and that. You know, that where the driveway's gonna go on.
Sure.
In general, I would just say also Alta is supportive of the concept here, where we're going of, you know, reducing the lower developed site and not having all of it developed. But, you know, we just would like to, like you pointed out, there needs to be a lot of things worked out. And we're more than willing to work with the state and try to find an amenable solution.
Okay, all right, thank you. So we do have a list of things that I didn't keep track of, all the things that need to be continued discussion, deeper dives, things like that Jeff brought up. Mike brought up using on my list as far as making sure if the conservation easement were to go through, making sure any future anything identified is called out in there. And I think it's been a really good discussion. I'm glad we're daylighting this, so to speak. I think I don't know if it's coming back in January with some more details, and I don't know if I don't have an exact list of, but I think what Jeff brought up a lot of points would be good. I couldn't help but think of at a future time, replicating our balloon exercise we did a few years ago. Because I did hear, I think we're all going gulp a little bit in terms of the size, just like boom, you know, sort of thing. And that's normal. That's change. And that's we all feel that way, I believe. So just for those, we did said there were balloons on the I don't know when that was, 6-7 years ago.
Was for the base facilities on redo?
Snowplow, right?
Snowplow. Yeah. So that
PVC pipes.
Yeah, PVC balloons, things like that, and maybe leave it up for a couple of days during a busy ski day. see what people think, I don't know, I'm just brainstorming ideas in terms of, back to the point about, stakeholders and things like that. It's one thing to see it on paper and, massing studies, things like that, I love those things too, but seeing it on the site is a whole nother ballgame sometimes.
Before we leave that point, I was
Sure,
just gonna say, one thing we found that's helpful sometimes, we can now get a series of drones, we could run them at the heights.
That's true.
And we could schedule to have people come and then you're seeing you run the drones. Doesn't achieve what you're talking about, leaving it up, but also if you get some wind, it maybe.
Yeah, but you'll be in the news because all those drone sightings.
That's right. Folks over here. And we just wanted to offer that, so, and we think that
On the drone.
maybe even, noticed we're gonna go and do a site review. We'd be happy to bring resources to that, just
So
to give
those
everyone a better
community,
frame. Yep,
stakeholders, whomever, yeah.
yeah.
And it's really nice to take a KMZ file and like stand on the corner,
Right.
like this is the corner of the building.
Right.
And have it, like, so we could go do that, prior to the next meeting. If we,
Yeah.
Is that-
Okay, I'm just throwing out ideas for the commission, to be honest, in terms of, so we can continue to wrap our heads around this. But I do think, I'm a big believer in getting out, doing a walkabout at some point, maybe, or see what this looks like, in real life. And then we do have some technical issues, I think that Jeff has brought up as well. Water, it sounds like the road is resolved in terms of Forest Service, or help us out on that, because I'm not really clear.
You wanna speak to that later?
Well, so. Well, so in order to have access for our parking structure, which is shown in the map, and I know the mayor's comments about its size being overstated. Putting that aside, we had to work through the details with the Forest Service relative to how we would accommodate both over the snow vehicles as well as rubber tire access. And so that's all detailed and put into an application that was filed, and there's been a finding of no significant impact made by the Forest Service. So we would be obligated to operate within those parameters. We think though, because this was raised by the town in some of our discussions, there's an opportunity to explore more fully the other option, which I think anytime we're able to just make it so we don't have to have users in closer contact and we're able to keep the status quo, that is strongly preferred.
Okay. Okay. Just another parting thought from me, I guess, so that's kind of what Mary was saying too. I think recommend a stronger benefit to the community statement. I mean, as far as the conservation is great, but let's, a little more public access or, interlodge, things like that, I think would next up my mind in terms of, getting to the side as well. But just, I think an isolated building with just condos and maybe some workforce housing, kind of out in the South 40, so to speak. I think it's something just doesn't quite square on that, to be honest. Yeah, but that's just my opinion. So, certainly about some other thoughts.
Well, I think, Bill, on that, it's the town's at a critical junction. And, it has been in the past kind of focused on single family housing.
Mhm.
And that's, the current settlement agreement, plans. Times have changed, in 10 years, but, is the town willing to embrace kind of a condo project? And does that then set some sort of ongoing character change to the town? And, it's fairly significant, it will be the largest building in town. Did my math right, that's over 105 feet, 104 actually. Plus whatever HVAC sits on top of the penthouse on top of that. So fairly significantly tall building, with somewhat of a transient, even though it's condo owned, it's most likely will be, pretty transient, use going in there, some Verbo or Airbnb type of, it was again, kind of a change to the town.
Sure. And I'm glad, Chris, you brought up early on in this discussion about, any sort of nexus with the general plan and things like that, which I think is also, it reminds me to go back to that as well. Single family versus this, what's on the table as far as, the architect would say, activation, making it more, is that a community benefit to where actually have just more people out and about, hopefully on foot, not driving around? Is that a possible outcome of this type of a project, versus this, a dozen, 10 single family homes where go in, lock the door, never to be seen for 2 or 3 days, except for the mountain. Just something that's different. So.
I guess I would say I'm not sure that that component is meaningful, I guess, from a 40,000 foot level, just anytime we can consolidate, development to a concentrated area, utilities, everything is just a better idea. Not opining on this proposal, just as a design kind of approach. Closer to town, closer to the base facility zone, let's say, or the commercial core is I think what the
Downtown Alta.
the oval. Anyhow, that's just a better approach. So
Okay, no, that's okay. Good planning principle. Okay,
Question.
go ahead, sure.
As we address your community benefit piece, we've tried really hard to fit this bucket within the current code usage. Should we bend that compliance to fulfill the community benefit? Because that's a big driving force of the design, was to keep within the. Just, and it doesn't have to be answered today, it's more like.
There's flexibility in the conditional uses.
Because like I can think of like 10 things that we could program in depending on how much you cared, right? And it was hard to gauge what people cared about. So maybe we'll put this in the options bucket and get a vibe from everybody on if they care. And then we can kind of socialize it past that.
I think that's fair.
I guess not, it wouldn't, for me, I guess we were just talking about the mass and the bulk of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Adding more to that would be a pretty.
Or would it add to the footprint or?
I think within the yellow
at the expense of 1 unit, for example.
I think within that yellow amenity area, there's the opportunity to purpose some of that space in directions that are more community oriented. So say in our earlier versions, when we were drawing a condo hotel, we had meeting space, some other spa space, things that we thought might be considered community benefit. When we shifted to a condominium model, we haven't gone through and tried to program every one of those spaces, but ultimately say, we can put a liquor store in, we can put a lot of things in under the FM20 zone. I don't think it's the right spot for a liquor store, but I think there's a.
They're in a lodge, maybe.
Interlodge and liquor store. So but again, that amenity space to have that available for interlodge, that makes a ton of sense.
Okay.
I was thinking more dramatic as options, but those are options too.
Okay.
So it just depends on what you want. Sorry.
From a legal standpoint, well, technically you can allow for things that aren't in the code. I strongly discourage, zoning by development agreement, basically. And in terms of setting precedent, it's like, why did they get to not meet the code for their development? Then why can't we do the same thing?
Yeah.
So, I think that that's one of the strengths of what they've brought, is that they're not asking for any variance to our code. I think as Chris pointed, so I would strongly recommend that anything that's brought to you meets the FM20 zone, if that's what they want to be.
Okay, no, fair enough, okay. Well, good.
Oh, I think John.
John, do you have? Okay, have your hand up, I'm sorry.
Yeah, just one thing that I'd like to clarify a statement that was made about the water, because I don't want the planning commission, I don't want you all leaving thinking that there's enough water and everything's fine, because I don't think there is right now. I mean, they've got enough water for 10 houses, which would translate into 10 condos under the State Division of Drinking Water Standards and statutes. While they've done the estate has done surveys and engineering studies to show that they might not use additional water only the state can say that's okay. So the state really has to weigh in on that, and they haven't done that yet. And after the state makes a decision on that, then we can move forward. And if there's more water that's necessary, that has to come from Salt Lake City. Because in the settlement agreement of 10 years ago, they got 800 gallons per day per house, 8,000 gallons per day, and that comes out of the town's allotment with the town's contract with Salt Lake City. So we don't have any extra water. And I don't want I just don't want you to walk away thinking, oh, the water's no problem. Because until the State Division of Drinking Water weighs in on what's actually required and what they'll approve, it's still a little bit up in the air. So,
Thanks, John. So what's next? Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, we thought we've got some homework items.
Yeah, let's go with.
But I mean, we will, this won't be an exhaustive list, we'll go back through and look at the notes and then confirm with staff.
Sure.
But some of the things that we're thinking about is, let's talk about conservation for a minute. We'll get you some more detail about how those restrictions would likely play on the land, how reserve rights might interface with that experience, and give some parameters there, so that could be analyzed by this group. That's just more to help you better understand what would be a condition if you were to move forward. The other item is we're gonna go ahead and work on more meaningful community benefit statement and explore what might be some opportunities relative to that. I think what we might want to do too, just so you can operationally understand how we would run access option A, which is not preferred, access option B is preferred, but we would put before you those plans and details that were submitted to the Forest Service, so you can see how operationally that works, weigh in on that. The other items we want to add in addition would be, make ourselves available for that site visit and making that available through terms of drones or other kind of technology, so we can get a better sense of the parameters and the feel of the site vis-a-vis, different viewing points, including most importantly, the skier experience. The other thing we would want to do is analyze and talk about in terms of what we could give you some more details relative to water and bring some of those drinking water approvals. We do have for storage but not source, which is what Goldner's, Mr. Goldner, John, let's call you John, sounds like this is the first.
Goldner's fine.
So we'll run that to ground and give it some details in terms of a submission on that. And then anything else that comes to mind, just wrap to the staff and we'll work with them to make sure we have a fulsome presentation. That's follow-up items.
Okay, I think that's comprehensive, thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah. So, John.
Yes.
This is beyond this current discussion, but given the number of units, the number of traffic going in and out, who's in charge of daily operations? I mean, you guys are builders and
Not even that.
well, and I just think operationally, I'm not sure, how well all the problems that are going on. I mean, that's snow plow, you got guests coming in at 9 o'clock at night. I mean, who's there? Where's the snow plow? All that stuff. That's major.
The buyers of these condominium units are going to demand that we have an operational program
They're better.
that answers all of those questions.
All right.
They're gonna be paying a lot of money for this and their HOA dues are gonna be astronomical. But they are going to want to, when they come up, they're going to want to have drivable pavement to get into the building. And they're going to want to have the building needs to be well run. And any developer who takes it over and any HOA manager who takes it over is going to be anticipating the level of service required to run a building at this elevation where it snows like a banshee.
Sounds good.
Well, we also have requirements that would obligate certain components of the operations plan, such as a requirement to essentially interface with public safety notification and interlodge travel restriction requirements. So we have to be able to communicate with the property, and I think in the case of condos, individual units about interlodge restrictions. And they have to have somebody on site to hang the sign on the door that, the sort of legendary don't go outside sign loud booms are occurring.
So is one of the workforce housing units like a proper on-site property manager as far as that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We got to assume at least I did, so. Mike, go ahead, please.
I just had a question for him. Help us understand the flag shaped conservation zone. Why is that just a Great, Mike.
So under the town code, we're required to have, so many acres net developable to achieve the density that we've proposed. So the net developable area has to be out of the wetlands, it needs to be out of the steep slopes, and it needs to be out of the stream setbacks. So that, that flag panhandle section is an area that meets all of those criteria without, making the lot itself excessively large. So we're basically trying to keep the acreage of the development lot as low as possible while still achieving a lot that can meet the
And I would say
net developable area requirements.
if we weren't in a trustless world where we were trying to just make the lot as small as possible, we just made the whole project. We have a much better ratio, but that's the amount, let us hit the minimum requirements.
I understand the amount, I just was kind of weird, why would you do flag shape and not just move up?
It's just math.
It's math, and we went up with a rectangle, instead of a 6.5 acre lot, it's a 7 acre lot, and
Yeah.
we felt it was better to keep the lot acreage down, and we're, if we were rezoning, write your own zoning bylaw, we would just rezone the 4 acres below the road, but, as clear guidance, work with the current zoning bylaw.
Okay, thank you.
Let's talk about, let's 5 and 6 are going to kind of lead into it. Let's why don't we talk, stop this agenda, end this agenda item, we're gonna, but we want to get back to you in terms of what your look ahead. So let's, if allow us to go to agenda item 6, please. And I think from the big picture standpoint, things that we've identified, which is,
Yes,
let's make those,
okay, so.
memorialize those.
So we do, like, we have to adopt an annual meeting schedule.
Right.
And I guess we could have waited till January, but I figured we might as well get it out of the way today, since our existing meeting schedule, is expired.
Sure.
At the end of the calendar year, so did, sort of tuck this into the agenda. Right at the end of, right as we were publishing it, so, but I did phrase it as discussion and possible action, so we could, just state for the record what the convention is, which I think is the 4th Wednesday of the month at 3 p.m.
Yes.
With a hybrid meeting, in-person location here at the Alta Community
So
Center.
we need to make that a motion then.
Yeah, and I think what we'll do at the next meeting is probably have you have a resolution of the actual dates.
Okay.
So, but
Right, and we do, I adjusted the 4th Wednesdays where they overlap with holidays, which this year they happen to overlap with Christmas and Thanksgiving, so.
do you have a document that
I
shows
don't.
it? Oh, okay.
I don't,
It's just,
yeah.
you have it.
So
Last minute kind of thing.
and as far as,
It was 4th Wednesday.
yeah, we're gonna continue that, but we'll make a formal resolution at our next meeting. Hot topics for the year, I don't want to open that up right now. Maybe as you think about, gee, I sure wish we talked about this or that or the other. And just email to Chris, or you know, have discussions with Chris or me, that's fine too. Last year, well, many years, we tried to say, this would be a good one, a good time of year to do this or that or the other. So, I don't have any thoughts on that, to be honest, for 2025. At least 2025, I feel like. So we do want to kind of have some themes for the year as we have in the past, so. Be thinking about that, please. So next month is.
The next meeting, if we're gonna meet in January, I would propose that we assume to do that.
Yes.
And we could do our annual Open Public Meetings Act training, perhaps that could be to really set the hook. For you guys and all the members of the public. So that would be on January the 22nd at 3 p.m. That would be the day of the next meeting, and then we can create a document with meeting dates.
January 22nd.
Yeah.
Yep, okay.
Is that a short week? Is that?
No,
Yeah.
that's a travel next day. January 22nd, and then we'll have the balance of the year discussed as well. Does that work for everybody? Now back to the meeting on the 27th, back to our agenda item. what's too soon, what's a reasonable ask in terms of the shopping list?
We're good. Yeah, we'll get this plan on it.
Now, obviously, the whole community, you know, the field looks, see whether drones, with balloons, what have you. That's gonna have to be, we'll have to talk about that, or you can talk with staff, explore some ideas on that, how to make that work, and whether it's a community event would be interesting,
Well,
or the community opportunity, I should say.
it's either noticed or and open or not.
I know.
For games?
If there's a quorum of you guys, then we have to notice it.
But if it's more, if it's like, you know, the PVC and balloons, you know, for multiple days, we don't.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah, but if you have a site visit.
Yeah, it would be.
Then we notice it, the
Right.
public's invited, and, you know, we can do it on skis, but we should also have a method
We should-
for
we should
the
have-
public to access.
Absolutely.
Handicapped people.
Absolutely. Let me think about that when I'll talk with Chris if we go that far in January, versus we have lots of other things to talk about. And when it's warm and cozy here, but soon we will, I think we should explore that.
Well, and it's worth keeping in mind that, you know, any in-person meeting scheduled in Alta in, you know, December through April has a high likelihood of having to get canceled or, you know,
Really?
roads
You think?
closed.
You think?
Artillery, well,
We hope so.
Hey, what happens to change, and we're gonna get a,
Take
you
that.
know,
Powder day?
warm wet storm on the 26th.
I was gonna say, if it's powder day.
Yeah, right, but if it's too deep, then it can cause problems, so.
I live recently on the corner up here.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think you have good enough direction for the next, at least month, maybe two.
We're ready.
Okay, all right, thank you. We'll talk more if we want to have a more formal comment period at that meeting as well. Any new business, agenda item 7?
With you know, in years past, we've kind of come and given an overview
Hey,
of
Mike.
things that we're doing.
The microphone can't hear you.
Yeah, come on up, sorry.
All right. I can help this period. But years past, we've come and kind of given the planning commission just an overview of the plans. Coming for Alta again. Would you like us to do that? Ian?
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. January, February, you're kind of your spring, summer capital projects. Yeah, absolutely. That'd be great. And that would be wonderful. And in the past, I think we've also done it, or tied it in with a ski about something. So that's maybe March or something like
I
that.
don't need to do that a little later too.
Yeah, so no, thank you for reminding us of that. We'll definitely take you up on that.
Okay,
Thank you.
work on that.
All right, thank you.
Hey, John,
Yes, sir.
January. I will be out of town on the 22nd.
Can you dial in?
Yes.
I'd like to be honest, I'd like to kind of hold it.
Okay.
Unless there's more than. Yeah, I'd like to kind of keep.
Make it happen.
Make it
All
happen,
right.
exactly, if that's okay, then thank you. With that, I think we're looking for a motion to adjourn our planning commission meeting.
So move.
A second? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Very good, thank you. We're just. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
You made it.
Yeah.
Perfect, yes.
Yeah, report to Ellen. Yeah.
Sure.